Good day, Albie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Should we let people know that just a minute and a half ago we were yelling at each other?
Yeah, and when you ask me to answer you over the music goes away for the people watching the video. But
Oh yeah, this is StreamYard we're using now, and we're troubleshooting it. It's not perfect. So for the
we've
video
been
watchers,
trying.
the music
We've
isn't
been
perfect for you video watchers, but for us audio people, it's wonderful and it's fine. But
right. The problem is that Tom does the audio and I'm recording the video on a separate computer. If Tom were recording the video where he is, it would actually be fine. But
also, we've been Alice is rightfully we've been yelling because Alice didn't have time to watch any of the shows today, which were all the same show really, and I listened to really all five of them, which was all obviously all Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine, Russia. But Alice is flat out. She's back in Massachusetts. I'm up here in Vermont still, and she accused me of having a leisurely day, which is actually absolutely true today. Not to rub it in, Alice, but I actually like had too much time to kill.
I
I was
know.
lying
That's
around
what
and
I'm
lying
saying.
around, and I'm like, me, man, I just keep. But I mean, I was studying certainly while I was lying around. But you are right about that. We got up early here, me, my brother, my cousin, and my son,
hmm
my sons, and we were hiking pretty early, and then that was kind of like the big thing of the day that we did, and then came back here, and those guys played a board game and cleaned up a little bit and made some quiches, and then I just started going over the show. But you and I had hours to. You were all out after church and everything. So yes, it's one of those things where it's just this is one of those days for us, and you guys have them, I know, where it's a total cluster bleep. It's not for us. It's for Alice actually.
Yeah,
Uh,
just for me. Only
yeah,
I have that.
right. Well, that said, I think it was a great day for my son James. I thought he was great. He learned new skills. We were up there. We were walking up a pretty big hill in a lot of snow. That was a pretty big angle, and he didn't complain at all. He had fun. He got in the snowball fight. He was throwing snow all around and into the river. There's a walking bridge where the river's 50 feet below, whatever, like this. And uh, and it was great. And then we came back to our house, and James got out on the roof. Did you see
hmm
that, Alice?
I did. I saw your photos.
He got
It
out on the roof.
does bother me slightly that he wasn't in church because I took the other kids to church and I'm really glad they were in church and it was so nice. And they did Sunday school and it's Forgiveness Sunday in the Orthodox Church, which is the Sunday before Lent starts. And everybody asks everybody else at the church, goes around and asks everybody to forgive them. So, that you start Lent with, asking everyone for forgiveness. And it was just really nice and lovely. And, I do think kids should go to church. But do you know what the biggest actually factor is that influences whether kids continue their religion when they're adults?
If they get married, as a matter of fact,
Nope.
if they get a neck tattoo.
No, if their dad goes to church with the family when they're a kid. Much bigger,
Really?
much bigger factor than if their mom goes.
Really?
Really,
Wow.
really.
Well, we don't have one of those up here, but we went to the Church of
You do.
Manhood.
There is one. There is one.
There is
I've
no
been to
one.
the Orthodox Church up in Vermont.
Today
It's
was a
about
very good,
25,
important,
30 minutes away from you.
very important development day today. I don't have a car either.
Mhm.
Uh, Development day today, and it was great. He did all sorts of important guy stuff, and then came back and he did his homework like he was supposed to. Rob signed
That's
off on
good.
it.
I am glad about that.
Yep. Rob worked with him, and they went together. Then they did this. They played this really tough board. It was a great day. It was a great day for him, and it couldn't have gotten better. I'm thrilled, and I think he's better for it, and he's having a blast, and it's cool, and I'm loving it.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
no,
great.
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. It was one of these things, where it's good. It's good for for boys to get out there and rough it for a while and do stuff, and
Mhm.
so so that was great. And he got out on the roof, like I said, and shoveled off the roof, and he did a great job. He busted his ass out there, and that's great. What's he, only 8? Is he or 9? What is he?
He's 8. He's going to be
He's 8
9
years
next
old,
month.
and he did a great job. I mean, he was really working hard out there. That's a lot of snow. right?
That's good. I'm glad. That's good.
Same roof that me and Jimmy shoveled, 40 years ago. And so yeah, I mean that's it. So now go the stuff going on in the world. You know what? I like I said,
So
it's
I
all
was
the
in fact today at the Russian church, by the way.
you're a what?
I was at the Russian church today with a bunch of Russians. So,
Oh, right. So how
mhm.
was that? I'm sorry my head is so fat and bulbous.
So it was good. I mean, I love the Russian church. I just do. It's beautiful, and that
Hmm.
obviously the Russian church has suffered plenty under communism. So most people who are there don't have like a lot of illusions over what type of guy Putin is or anything. But I don't know. It was really lovely. I did talk to one woman a little bit. About who's, she's like Russian, like is an immigrant with an accent and everything, and she has kids and stuff. And I was asking if she'd like seen any anti-Russian sentiments around, and she said like to her not really, but she said she has friends and relatives in Europe, in like other European countries outside Russia, and she said that the anti-Russian attitude is like huge there, that she knows somebody who had to pull their kids out of school there, just because the bullying was so bad and people have
Right.
just been so horrible and all this stuff. And she kind of said, like, I felt bad because she was like, well, what am I supposed to say? Like, if somebody did say something to me, she's like, she's like, I'd be like, yeah, I mean, like, I'm ashamed. I don't like what Putin's doing. And you know what? I can't like argue or defend it or something. I have nothing to say about that.
It's got
I
to be
don't.
an odd thing because now, and there was a bunch of this in the weekend shows.
Hmm.
It's got to be an odd thing because now, they're shelling civilians and children are dying,
Yeah.
and there's a bunch of things showing mothers wailing and things. And so, like, what do you say? I mean, this this war, this act of aggression is just a murder campaign. It really is.
It's pretty
Um,
bad.
yes, it is. It's pretty bad, and they've this was a fear since the the army stalled so much, and it's been so ineffective. Even considering that they've got troops, they have a direct line of supply from Russia and Belarus, and still they can't seem to the convoy that was
They've
set
had
up
a
for
lot of
Kyiv last
logistics
week
issues.
has not made it into Kyiv yet. It's just kind of barely moving. They've run out of gases in a lot of places. They had to abandon a bunch of equipment all over the country, the Russians,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
so
and you'll see
there's
the
there's still
videos, and again, I don't know what's real and what's not, but you'll see the videos of like the trains, the freight trains like bringing in equipment, and it's like all super old equipment, half a century old, or like the most recent one I saw was all like vans and old stuff. It's like not even military equipment. I think they have some serious logistics problems. Not that historically that has stopped the Russians, because that's kind of been their thing. Like in World War II, didn't they have like one gun for every three soldiers,
yeah,
and they
probably.
just sent them out there into a meat grinder, and they were like, well, whatever. Like, we have enough people that we can afford to just like that's Russia, by some estimates, I think lost 10 to 20 million people in World War II. It's like huge.
Well,
It's like
no,
and
that's true.
I think it
I mean,
is. It's an enormous number. They really like they're the most of anybody.
yeah, but
But
here's the thing also. So now you've got the regime. The Putin is now shelling cities
I'm
and
seeing 16, 17 million. Yeah.
shelling. Putin is shelling cities and civilians who are trying to escape as refugees as well, and they're just punishing the Ukrainians, just trying to kill the hell out of them so that they break the will of the resistance and Zelensky, and it's just sheer straight up murder. I mean, there are little families there that didn't ask for any of this who are now
Right.
dead all over the place, and it's like it's a vicious thing, and and so people are more and more clamoring for a no-fly zone, which is
But
of course.
no fly zone means
Why
we're at
are
war
you
with Russia.
are you wow, go ahead, Alice. I'm gonna let you take over. Apparently, you are prepared more than you said you were.
I'm trying to be on point because I get yelled at if I don't talk back enough to you. I just don't know what
You're
I'm supposed to do.
no,
But you know
you're
what?
not
Go ahead.
no,
There's
you
also a little bit
no,
of delay. So I also, when you pause, I don't know if it's my time to talk or what. But you know what? Go ahead. I'd like to hear what you have to say about the no fly zone.
you're not talking back to me, you're talking on me.
I should have worn my step-on wife shirt, I
No
guess, today.
kidding. No kidding.
Instead, I have my crazy anxious fiance's husband, which is another brilliant Tom saying. I
Thank you.
mean, what can
Hey,
I
I
say?
just gotta say, that the front porch-wise, you're rocking today,
Oh,
man.
excuse me. Stop. It's
Oh, well,
almost Lent.
oh, okay. Um, so, so yeah, so you people are saying the no-fly zone, but the no-fly zone thing is just ridiculous. Although that said, the American left is going to be demanding it very soon, very shortly,
Mhm.
regardless of what it would really mean. It's not like we can't just declare this space a no-fly zone, so that we can fly American sorties in and out with complete what's it called?
Abandon?
Yes,
I don't know.
completed impunity.
Impunity? Okay.
Right, and so as if the Russians are going to take that, and also if the Russians are shooting at our planes, so we're going to we're going to blow up facilities in Russia. So I mean, a no-fly zone is a war. It's just
Right.
craziness for people to say. Thoughts?
So there's this like whole theory in international relations that like nuclear countries are more likely to be in these sort of proxy wars like Vietnam and Korea and stuff,
Mhm.
but then far less likely to actually engage in real conflict because like the stakes are so high. And this is the problem with the no-fly zone issue is that like neither country really wants that because Russia and the US like don't want nuclear escalation per se. you know, Russia doesn't want to be fighting because we're both nuclear countries. You know what I mean? So it causes a problem for both of us. Like nobody wants to get nuked here. So we are very shy of getting involved in open conflict with Russia, and Russia has the same thing. They don't really want to be in open conflict with us either. Although like I say, Russia's probably more willing to, throw a bunch of their citizens under the bus to achieve their foreign policy goals than America tends to be generally. But you know, the people saying no fly zone and Ukraine, all credit to the Ukrainian government and media who have done a phenomenal job of selling this policy as a low cost policy for the Western world, right? That's been like the whole thing, the point of all this propaganda and all these heroic stories they've been selling the West, right? It's like, close the skies, like we're fighting
Yes,
off the Russians, we just
yes.
need you to close the skies. Like, and, it sounds good if you don't know anything about armed conflict or what a no-fly zone entails.
Close the skies.
If you just think that close the skies means that like we tell Russia like no, no, don't fly planes there and like that's the end of it, then that's fine. But it means that we'd be shooting at Russian planes and they'd be shooting back at us and that would be like then we'd just be in a war and that's not
Right, and
it's
if we're in the war, then we're in the war.
right.
You
And like we're in a war with two nuclear armed countries and that doesn't end well for anybody. I do think there is a strong possibility that Russia goes nuclear here, although I think that the most like scenario
what?
is like what? That
You think
Russia
there's a
goes
strong
nuclear?
fires a nuclear weapon?
Not at us. I think the most likely possibility of Russia doing something nuclear war wise here is like a mini nuke or a tactical nuke or like a dirty bomb, like that kind of thing in Europe. But I think that we should make sure that we are not nearby when that happens because if they hit some of our stuff, then it becomes or some of our people even worse, then it becomes something where we're like obligated to retaliate. So this is the issue with the nuclear powers thing, right? Is that like we literally like can't get into a real war with Russia because we risk planet Earth here. It's not good news for anybody. My IOSat tablets did arrive, by the way. I have them.
Oh, very good.
So I am ready to go in case of nuclear emergency.
Well, the Russians can't use a nuclear. If they use a nuclear weapon, then
In
I think that.
but in Europe, in like a small way in Europe.
Well, but how is that okay with Poland as they're coughing and choking?
It's not okay
It
with
is.
Poland, obviously. It's not okay with anybody. Like but yeah, it depends, like, how much it impacts other NATO countries or what. It depends if Putin goes into NATO countries, we, like, have treaty obligations then that we have to be involved in something, but, this whole thing is bad news. It's bad news that Biden was weak in advance and was not an effective deterrent. It's bad news that, that we haven't yet cut off buying Russian oil.
Right,
And
and so here's the let me give you the update today from because Blinken was out there 184 times.
mhm.
Is the latest is that we're now considering cutting off Russian oil imports to the U.S., but we're waiting for our partners in Europe to do it because it's so Biden to set arbitrary dates, to have arbitrary constructs around things, and to now say if we want to be one voice, united. Really, you can just stop the imports, which is what we should do. But we always want to be one voice. And one, God, it's so
Except when we pull out of Iraq, or sorry, Afghanistan. When we pull out of Afghanistan, then it's fine if we piss off all our allies and do it totally unilaterally, and they're all mad at us. Like, then
well.
it's okay.
And we're also trying to broker an oil import deal with
With
Iran,
Iran,
right? Which is being um, the the person who's the person who the moderator. It's being moderated by the Russians, of course, who are
right?
working with us in our Iran deal. This is crazy. And now we're reaching out to Maduro, I guess, as well, asking for oil from this guy. But that
Anything but open a freaking pipeline, I
and
guess.
that
My
right there,
goodness.
that right there is the key, and that's why we're effed in this country. That's why we're effed because we have made a decision. The Biden administration has made a decision that the religious pilgrimage is more important in a pressing issue than the realities in the ground.
Well, right,
And
because if we were actually energy independent before, if the Keystone Pipeline had been allowed to proceed before, if Biden had allowed its completion when he got into office, instead of killing all those jobs, killing that pipeline project, and keeping us more energy independent, then we would have been in a better position before the whole Russia conflict started. I mean, like, I wouldn't want to say that just that one factor would be enough for Putin to not do anything, but obviously that's like one of the cards that we have is if we're dependent on them for fossil fuels, then they have more power over the situation. If we don't cut off their stupid pipeline, if we just say fine, completed, it's okay, whatever, then they know that they're doing great and they're fine. Like, Trump wouldn't have let this happen because Trump would have still had the Keystone Pipeline and all this stuff. And now for the Biden administration, because what I feel is happening now is they're trying to pin the inflation and the gas prices and all this stuff onto this Russia conflict and Putin, right? And trying to tell people like, well, yeah, the prices are high at the pump, but it's not Biden's fault. It's Putin. Like, we have to,
all right,
stop our Russian oil imports because Putin's bad. So like then obviously the prices are going to go up. Well, like, first of all, they were going way up before, and second of all, like, you could have done something about this in advance because the whole point was, I mean, like, it's such a cliche, but this was like the Trump campaign slogan, right? Is like, we're sending these millions of dollars away to countries that don't like us very much, right? Like, isn't that the line? Like,
hmm
is that even Trump, or is that just like a standard Republican one-liner that people do? Like, I don't even remember, but that's like, that's the idea, is that if you're energy independent, then you don't have to worry about being beholden to people like Putin or countries like Iran. Like, you don't have to deal with that crap because you can have your own energy and you don't have to worry that if you cut off imports from Russia, that you're going to make the prices go up at the pump for everybody because you're just not dependent like that.
right,
I mean, that's the whole idea. People have been saying this for a long time, and they're like, yeah, we should be energy independent, but we should be energy independent with solar power and like
right. This is what
batteries
Psaki
and
said today. She tweeted today. The only way to protect U.S. over the long term is to become energy independent. That is why the president is so focused on deploying clean energy technologies that don't require fossil fuels bought and sold on the global market, which will
uh-huh.
always be vulnerable to bad actors.
Yeah.
That's just right
Yeah.
there. That they don't give an F. They are talk about laser focused on the religious mission of climate change. They are absolutely. That is the number one thing for them. right now.
Of
And
course,
that's
the key word there being long term, because nobody knows. Literally, no one has any idea how long this stuff will take to actually develop, right? Look at Tesla. You have Elon Musk out here on Twitter saying that the only way to deal with this is to produce more oil and gas domestically. Like, that's the only thing we can do about this right now to be more independent from bad actors right now in this moment. Like, obviously, we should have done it last year when Biden got into office. We should have finished the Keystone Pipeline because this was entirely foreseeable to everybody. And but now that the moment is here, the time you have Elon Musk, who's the biggest electric and solar person in the market, right? Like, he's the biggest person doing green energy on the market right now. And he's saying we need more oil and gas. Like, that's because he knows that the technology is not there to make an impact on this yet. So, like, yeah, maybe in the long term that's a thing, but for the moment, like, this stuff just doesn't exist. Like, we went through this when we were looking at potentially doing solar power, like, mostly to save money. And we didn't want to, like, do the panels on our roof because it's ugly and we have like a pretty old house and it's whatever. It's the only thing we have. Our house is like a piece of junk, but at least it's like picturesque old New England farmhouse, right? That's all we have going is the aesthetics. Like, everything else is falling apart. But so anyway, we like looked at doing it, but we hemmed and hawed and we were like, we don't know if we want to do this. And I can't tell you how many people sent me like the promo videos of the Tesla solar roof stuff, like the roof tiles that are solar panels but just look like a normal roof and all this stuff. But the problem with the Tesla solar roof is that it's pretend. It's a TED Talk. It doesn't, there's not like really a real Tesla solar roof. The Tesla solar roof is you go to a website and you give Elon Musk $1,000 to reserve your solar roof for the future. And then maybe in a few years or whatever, when they actually are making solar roofs, they'll come install one. Like, there's no solar roof that exists. You can't go out and buy it. So this technology is like not where it needs to be. And also, the green energy market is also dependent on bad actors. Do you remember when John Kerry had to answer the question if our solar panels that we use in the United States are made by like Uyghur slaves in China?
yeah,
And
of
he was
course.
like, "Well, we're not sure if they're made by slaves, but I guess like that's the price we
Yeah.
have to pay or whatever he said." And that's like, I mean, like, we're also dependent on bad actors for that, right? Like, we should also be cutting off China from stuff. The irony that we're not allowing disabled Russian people to compete in the Paralympics in Beijing, right? When like China should also be banned from everything in the civilized world because they have literal slavery and genocide happening on their watch right now. It's just not as obvious because they're like way more in control of the PR of the situation.
Right.
You know, I mean, they're as bad as Russia. Like, Putin's bad dude. Russia's also bad. Like, Ukraine probably also corrupt, but like they're not killing children at this moment in time. So it's sort of, but I don't know. I can't wrap my mind around the mentality because they say these people like Jen Psaki say these words out loud, like, you know, like, oh, well, the fossil fuel industry is always going to be dependent on bad actors, like, which, okay, yes, that's sort of true, right?
Well, it's not only
But
that, but it's
but
also
it's so
it's also part of, if you saw any of the shows today, it was all when anybody would ever mention, well, under Trump this didn't happen. Under Trump we had an oil surplus. We were exporting oil. The immediate knee-jerk reaction was, and at one point Chuck Todd almost yelled, was Donald Trump held up American Javelin missiles from the Ukraine and tried to get other sanctions removed again and again and again. There's this weird thing is that they go right off message because they've got this open wound when you start talking about this about Trump and how it can't be that things were better with Trump because
but
he
they
helped
literally
create.
were. We all know it.
Yes, of course. The Russians weren't in Ukraine, and also the Javelin missiles was one phone call and 2 weeks of delays, but they got the Javelin missiles under
Yeah,
Trump,
they're
but
using them
not
right
under,
now.
right. They got them under Trump, but not under Biden. Biden stopped it the moment he was in office. Biden stopped arming Ukraine. Trump armed the shit out of Ukraine, and so like
Right.
I'm sorry about this. I know that you can't believe there could be a straight black and white issue where Trump is better than Biden at something, but he was.
Well, of course he was. I'm like, I mean, it's funny. Like we were talking to family this week, right? We were in this conversation, and I said something like, "Wow, I guess like Putin only invades Ukraine when Biden's in office or something because he last invaded in 2014." And he was like, "Putin invaded Ukraine in 2014?" You know, our relative was like, "It didn't really make the news much, did it?" And I'm like, "No, of course it didn't. Like it didn't. It he
Yeah, it
did
was only
because it
over on
happened."
it was only over on faux news.
Yeah, he took over Crimea, and that I honestly like. I think that's what Putin was expecting to happen here. I think that he thought this would be like quick and easy, like Crimea was, and then and then the world would sort of forget about it, right? Without the need for all this extra stuff, because that's what happened with Crimea, right? Like the world did forget about it, as evidenced by like my conversations with regular people who aren't like big news junkie weirdos like you and I are,
Mhm.
right? Is like people don't know that Putin also invaded Ukraine during the Obama administration, and then he like took a break during the Trump years and immediately went back to invading Ukraine like right away once Biden was in office. But I mean, like, I think that's really telling, and there's only so many ways that you can spin it that you like think it's a plot with Putin to not make Trump look bad, so that something like the fact is he didn't invade Ukraine during the Trump years. Like
Right. Well,
that's just bottom
and also
line. That's
people
what went
say Trump
down.
was
So
literally it's like they go to this because the idea of Trump being better at this than Biden, they go right to this dunk on you line of Trump was literally impeached for trying to hold up, missiles to Ukraine. It's like, yeah, but then he didn't hold them up, and now they're using them and blowing up Russian tank columns with them. So it's like, what do you want to say? Trump tried. Trump could have. Trump said. Trump and Putin in Helsinki. Yes, 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 yes. But it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, these people were armed to the teeth, and actually, it was something that it's funny because Chuck Todd, I think it was Chuck Todd. Who's the lady the British lady who during the impeachment, she was like a diplomat in Ukraine, and during the impeachment, she testified against Trump.
oh, I'm not sure.
Remember,
Sorry,
you know her. It was along with Vindeman. There was a woman too.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Let me see if I can find it here, because it was oh crap. Sorry. It was just very telling. There's too many of these damn shows I've watched. It's made me even dumber somehow. Let me see if it's on Meet the Press. Is it
Yeah,
me?
but I mean, like, the left is involved in this
Fiona Hill.
wacko, like, conspiracy theory thing that they're like sure that Trump was in Putin's pocket the whole administration, so they like
Or,
can't let go
yes, and
of
Fiona
their
Hill.
imaginary world where
Chuck Todd said to Fiona Hill, who hates Trump. I mean, to say, so didn't wasn't Trump culpable for what's happening here because of all the times he tried to loosen sanctions and when he got impeached for that for trying to dangle dangle the weapons over Zelensky's head for political purposes. And Fiona Hill said, well, it is true that Trump did heavily arm the Ukrainians and did sanction the Russians in a very serious manner and did engage them overseas several times, and did once again do a job of adequately arming these people. Um, she said, well, that is true. The fact that he did have the phone call with Zelensky shows that he treated him kind of like a lesser than, and Putin probably noticed that. That's what they're going with. It's like, okay, but the tanks didn't move into Ukraine. I mean, what do you want to
yeah,
say?
exactly. It's like, but they can't let go of it. I just sent you another video clip. If you can play that, that's when Sarah Kendzior, PhD, scholar of authoritarian states, was on MSNBC. And like, she's repeating this like crazy wacko garbage that's as bad as like any QAnon crazy thing that people believe, frankly. Did you find her? Sarah Kendzior
I
on
had to open another
MSNBC? I
Twitter thing.
just sent it to you. Anyway, but yeah, the left like it's totally they've lost their minds and it somehow has to be about Trump. Like and I don't get how many years into the Biden administration do we have to get before like Biden is responsible for something? It's ridiculous. It's all about like the former guy in Trump and they just like can't quit him. If Trump does get the Republican nomination in 2024 by some weird happenstance, it's going to be because the left acted like this about him for years and
Well,
years.
totally. Here's Sarah Kenzie.
Kenzior.
Trump
Kenzior.
was installed as the president of the United States in order to weaken the alliances that were preventing Putin from achieving his goals. Alliances like NATO, our relationship with our European partners, our relationship with Ukraine. Trump was put in as a bulldozer, and he was also put in, as Malcolm said, as a bulldozer to the Constitution, to our system of checks and balances, to our system of institutional trust, and the unwillingness of people in the United States to confront the brokenness of those institutions, whether through financial corruption in recent years or age-old systemic problems like the endemic racism that holds our country up, has contributed to that. And Fox News, in this sense, is just an extension of that long-running destructive pattern.
Two things about that, Alice. How do you think I feel about her?
You have a crush on her?
I would say so, yes. She's obviously an insane human being. Trump was installed because oh my God. So can I go?
I guess questioning elections is back, honey. Like,
Yes.
let's
Absolutely.
go.
Is that a big lie? I don't know. So let's go now to just on other notable audio. If this is just the left, this is how they feel. These are leftist elitists. Is it Eli Mistal, the guy with the stupid hair? He's the
Or is it
lawyer.
Ellie? I don't know.
Ellie
Yeah.
Mistal, the guy with the really stupid hair. Is on The View, which is a good fit for him actually. With Anna
Although
Navarro, Anna Navarro, who has a Ukraine T-shirt on now, so she's totally she's a good person. Go ahead, although what?
I was gonna say, like, it's not very often that a guest makes the host of The View look moderate, but that happened.
Right. This what he says here is so beautiful that Joy Behar actually took
She was
issue
like,
with
but
it.
wait.
Yeah, there you go.
Some will say, okay, so are you arguing for throwing out the Constitution? Should the Constitution be thrown out? What do we do? Is it a living document? Is it a sacred document?
It's certainly not sacred. All right. The Constitution is kind of trash. Now let's just
Start again.
Some will say, okay, so are you arguing for throwing out the Constitution? Should the Constitution be thrown out? What do we do? Is it a living document? Is it a sacred document?
It's certainly not sacred. All right. The Constitution is kind of trash. Now let's just talk as adults for a second.
What did you say? It's what?
It's kind of trash.
Trash.
It was written by slavers and colonists and white people who were willing to make deals with slavers and colonists. They didn't ask anybody who looked like me what they thought about the Constitution.
So yes, that's Eli Mistal, justice correspondent at The Nation. Alfred. So
I think it's Ellie. Isn't like Ellie?
whatever
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. He's stupid. He's stupid. Although what he's doing here, he's just begging for a gig. Somebody hire this guy so he doesn't have to walk around with stupid hair like that for no reason. He's doing it to try to be a brand. Please, somebody hire this guy. Give this dumb a show. I mean, obviously, the Constitution is why any of these fools are there. Why any of these fools have money. Why he is an entitled, spoiled, rich baby American lawyer. And it's a take in a hot take universe for people trying to battle for woke seats, but it's fine. I mean, whatever. He's for some
but
reason,
it's also funny because Sarah Kendzior
is here, but for some reason you're allowed to trash the government of this country without ramifications. I don't know why that is. I wish somebody could tell me.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a joke. Like, people are getting arrested in Russia right now if they even so much as like protest the tiniest thing the government does, or even say out loud that there's a war happening, because like half of Russia doesn't even know because their propaganda machine is so strong. Right. That's obviously not what we have here. So people acting like they're somehow oppressed here compared to other places in the world is absurd, but it's also ironic, like, that you have Sarah Kendzior on the one hand going out here and saying that Trump bulldozed the Constitution, and then Ali Mistal or whatever coming out and saying, the Constitution's trash. Like, well, which is it? You know, if maybe it's good that Trump bulldozed it then, if you like that. I mean, I'm sure Trump would be happy to write a new constitution with you if he thought it could like get him more popularity and votes, and I'm sure he'd be happy to like throw out a bunch of freedom of speech things if he thought he could get certain people to stop criticizing him. You know, Trump is absolutely willing to be an authoritarian right along with these people, but you know, I don't think they really. I don't think these liberals that say this stuff like really believe it. Like I think they go on
No.
TV and they're like role playing radicals and they're just really not. Like I don't think they really mean it. I don't think they know what it entails. I don't think they still know what it entails with the war going on in Europe. It's crazy to me. And I don't know. This has like been a lot of food for thought for me personally because I, I mean my dad's an immigrant from the former Yugoslavia, right? So
Mhm.
I'm like probably more abreast of those issues, but it's funny to me because I have a lot of like relatives and acquaintances and friends and stuff that have been through like actual war, actual, you know, crimes against humanity stuff, like bad things, right? Who know how quickly all this stuff goes down and the veneer of civilization that's over your life disappears because Yugoslavia, like, you know, before everything fell apart in a war was like a country with TV shows and apartments and stuff and universities and like all the things, right? Like it seemed like stuff, and they technically weren't part of the Soviet Union, right? They were always kind of a buffer state. But it's just funny like how much we take for granted here that we can go on TV and cosplay as radicals and revolutionaries and all this stuff without really understanding what revolution means, what civil war
Well,
means, what
but
like what these like cultural revolutions mean for stuff because
yeah,
this is like real stuff. I mean, and like
yes, it
and
is.
the war in Ukraine, I think the images coming out of it have made people who are thoughtful go, oh wow, like that's really what war is like when it comes to I mean, is Ukraine first world, is it second world? I don't know. Yugoslavia I'd probably call second world country, right? Where it's like it's not the third world, but it's sort of like borderline. But you know, it's funny like this stuff, it just the stuff we think of as being like our lives and our country and our civilization, like that stuff goes away. Like you think that people wearing masks are a big problem for you in your life, like
Mhm.
y- y- that's not going to be your biggest problem if like an actual civil war or an actual revolution that ever came or we actually decided to tear up the Constitution, if that actually happened here,
Well, right.
right? Like that's not what that stuff
Right.
looks like.
I mean, there will be, we will raise hell if Netflix goes out or if we lose power for a week in this country. But these people are leaving their houses with their cats and dogs and their possessions, and are leaving stuff behind, and or the stuff's being blown up. So there's no doubt. But also, we're just going back to
It's funny, we were watching that, hang on one sec, one thing you said, like, so we watched this movie about Charles de Gaulle on
call him Charles
Amazon
Gall.
the other
Else,
Charles de Gaulle.
right?
Okay. Charles de Gaulle on Amazon, right? And like, remember when all the people were like fleeing their homes in like little wagons and carts
Mhm.
and taking all their stuff with them? And like, one of the people had their grandfather clock in their little cart. And like, it's so striking for that reason. Like, this is everybody's like life was going on as normal and this grandfather clock was their prized possession, and like now the Nazis are coming and you're like loading all your stuff into a wagon and like running off down the road, and it's this weird dichotomy, but that's what that stuff is really like. So people who I have little patience for people who pretend on TV that this stuff is like a joke or not real, or like, you know, we should just rip up the Constitution. Like, what do you think happens when you do that?
Right.
Really? Really? You
Well,
know, I want to know what people think will happen if you tear up the Constitution and try and start a new, fresh country.
right. I mean, you know, the Constitution is why that guy is. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like it's like, you know, eschewing a gravity. Okay,
Right.
you can, but without it, stuff's gonna seem a lot different than just putting the ionosphere. Um, it's just such a
Well,
nice.
right. It's Chesterton's fence. Do you know the Chesterton's fence thing?
Yes, I know it, Alice.
You do.
We've talked about it, I think, on this
Okay.
show.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's like the Chesterton's fence thing of like, don't tear down a fence unless you know why somebody put it there. But it's like in this case, they want to tear down the fence while people are going, hey, there's a reason this fence was here. It's really good, actually. It holds out all this bad stuff. Definitely keep the fence. And they're like, no, we know better. We're just taking it down anyway. It's like Chesterton's fence, but without the like, we don't know why it was put here. It's like, we know why it's here and we just want to tear it down anyway just because. That's like what these people are like who want to throw out the Constitution. Like
No, I don't
I
think
think
that's a complete enough analogy. I think it's if Chester's defense was the very thing that protected you from forest fires and a flood and an army trying to invade, and still you're saying, look at this stupid fence. Like, okay, well, without it, your situation would be done a long time ago.
it's Tom Shattuck saying he wants an open floor plan and he does not
Right.
care if the
So
wall
he's
is
the
load
moron
bearing.
with the stupid hair. This moron with the stupid hair. So where would he like his rights to be enumerated exactly? All these rights that he has now, that everybody has now. Where are those to be enumerated, if not in the stupid Constitution that was written by people who don't look like him?
Yeah, I mean, it was written by people who don't look like me either, but it still works on me. That's the magic
Yeah.
of it. The Constitution is still out there working for me, even though no women wrote it. It's incredible. It's incredible how that happens. It still counts for me. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. And you would think with the war in Ukraine happening right now and the images coming out of that country that people would be like a little bit more thoughtful, but no. But no, they can't. And Elie Mystal went on The View, and then he got in a Twitter fight because he took a bunch of pictures of himself in his livery car or
Yes.
whatever when he was going to it, and he was masked in the car on the way to The View.
And then they said, well, how come you have a mask in the car with that guy, but then on The View you didn't wear a mask? And he said, well, I'd been PCR tested. We knew that I didn't have it, and I've been vaccinated. And they said, well, then why did you need one in the car?
Because you were still negative tested and
That's it.
vaccinated in the car. But no.
But also, you know what? Because his hair is so stupid, there was nobody looked like him during the Constitution because his hair would be too stupid for any time.
Some of them had pretty wacky hair, I have to
His hair is
say.
the most stupid hair that's ever been done in history. All right, which brings us to my Substack, Alice.
Okay.
Which is called Perfection. A single Twitter thread shows us how immaculately stupid we are. A free Substack, Alice.
Free.
It has Patricia Arquette tweets out.
You can go subscribe and get these in your inbox for free.
Yes, Patricia Arquette, the Hollywood actress, has kick Russia out of NATO. Was her tweet? Kick Russia out of NATO. So obviously that's a really gold-plated stupid thing to say. Obviously, because they're not part of NATO, because NATO is because Russia, a Soviet Union.
Right.
And so somebody responds to her and says, Russia isn't part of NATO. You might have meant to say the UN, in which case, yes, they should. To which some other guy goes after him saying, mansplainer. So then that guy responds, can you mansplain to me when Russia joined NATO? And then somebody responds to him saying, trick question. They never joined NATO. They just took over the Soviet Union spot. To which somebody who's not insane said, I'm begging each of you to read a book. To which, here we go, Cecilia rules the day. She saves the day. She says, it was a mistake. We're all battle fatigued. No need to pile on Mrs. Arquette. We're all battle fatigued. So it's a guy
so
named,
battle fatigued right now.
Right, exactly. So what talking about an actual war going on in Europe, you figure maybe it's a little inartful to say. To which some guy named Isaiah Taylor says, unless I'm mistaken, Miss Arquette is not in the battle, nor has she ever been. There are reasons to make this mistake, but battle fatigue is not one available to her. To which Chrysanthemum, the mom, this woman named Chris Ann the mom, which is a clever
A
take on
joke. I get it. Yep.
chrysanthemum,
Like
Alice, the flower.
chrysanthemum is a flower. Yep.
To which she says, point taken, but to be a woman is also a daily struggle. So, and I just made to the point in my Substack that I think that perhaps is the most brilliantly laid out symphony of idiocy that has ever been done in the American stage. And as a matter of fact, it should be celebrated. That each
I mean,
person.
is it possible maybe we should just take away everyone's social media privileges? And like people should only be allowed to tweet if they like meet a certain threshold of IQ
Alice,
test or something.
Okay, for some of you, you're staying right there. For others of you, guys, we're going to have the Patreon part is starting right now. Now, I'm going to do the outro because Alice can't hear. She cancels the video when she does the outro. So I'm going to do this. So, guys, subscribers, thank you so much. For everybody else, we'll see you over at Patreon. Ready, Alice? Ready for this?
So ready.
All right. Follow us on, glad you asked that. Email us at burnbarrelpodcast.com. Email us at burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com. Glad we spent a buck. Follow us on Parler at parlernolongerexist.com. On Gab at burnbarrelpodcast. On Facebook, facebook.com/burnbarrel. And on Twitter at burnbarrelpod. We love you all.
C'est la vie.
Great job, sweetie.
Thank you.